Okay, so let's move on from our compound versus element review and start to talk about the first category of compounds that you are going to learn how to name, which are the ionic compounds. Okay, so ionic compounds are made up of ions. So the name gives it all away, okay? And you've heard about ions in the past. I think it was, I don't know what chapter it was, but it was a while ago. And just to remind you that the word ion means a particle with a charge. So either a positive charge or a negative charge. And that charge would have happened because electrons, remember, can come and go. They're mobile or mobile. Okay, so a cation is the word that refers to a positively charged ion. And since electrons are negative, things can become positively charged if they lose an electron. Remember, lose your negativity to be more positive. It's a good thing to keep in mind these days. And the word anion refers to a negatively charged ion. So in other words, there's an imbalance of protons and electrons on an atom, resulting in a charge. Okay, so ions can be either positively charged or negatively charged. And when those, when those things are attracted to each other, because opposites attract, they can make a bond, they can form what's called an ionic compound. So an ionic compound results when a metal cation, which is a positively charged ion, bonds with a nonmetal anion, which is negative. So you have a positive thing binding to a negative thing, giving us an ionic compound. Okay, so this is just a little picture down here. The metal cation is a positive charge, a non-metal anion is a negative charge, and when they join together, we get an ionic compound. Okay, so you also need to just maybe be reminded, let's look at our periodic tables for a second, of where the metals are and where the non-metals are. Okay, so this, I believe, was chapter 4. All of these purple ones are metals. Remember, these are the alkali metals, the alkaline earth metals, the transition metals, and so forth, but they're all metals. So metals are going to tend to lose electrons to become positively charged. So metals form cations. All right, on this picture, the blue ones are the nonmetals. Okay, here's our noble gases, here's the halogens, etc. And so remember, hydrogen is hard to place. It's got different properties, but hydrogen is considered a nonmetal. Okay, so the ones are the nonmetals. They would tend to become negatively charged, and the word for those are the anions. All right, so let's look at your own periodic table here, okay, because we need to show you how or where the charges are. So this is your little snip from your periodic table, but you should take out your periodic table right now because we are going to look at it. I gotta fix my screen here. Oops. It is not letting me. Okay, we'll just carry on as much as I can. So this is a yellow table. All right, and I just want to show you that on the top of every column, the typical charge is shown. So in other words, one plus, or plus 1, either one is fine. So in this column, those things tend to have a charge of plus 1. So in other words, if I had an ion of lithium, it would be a plus 1. And I would write it, lithium plus 1. Okay? Anything in this column or family, if I had an ion, it would tend to have a charge of plus 2. So magnesium would have a charge of plus 2. All right, and I'm just showing you this because it's going to be important later and also just to sort of introduce you to it. These are the nonmetals over here, right? They tend to gain electrons to become negatively charged, and the charges are written on the tops of the columns. So everything in this column, if it's an ion, tends to have a -3 charge. Everything in this family tends to have a -2 charge, and the halogens, when they become ions, tend to have a -1 charge. All right, I just want to point out one more thing here. If you look here at the transition metals, you can see that they do not have charges above their columns or above their families, and that's important, okay? And we're going to get back to that later. I'm just wanting to point that out. All right, so let's go back to where we were here. All right, and I think now is a good time, again, for you to pause and go back to the Schoology quiz questions, and you are going to need to have your periodic table And if you don't have yours, your teacher probably has it posted on your Schoology page.